Hi guys, Jenny from So Confident here, and because it's getting to that time of year when the schools are going back, you're trying to get school uniforms and all that sort of thing, I thought I would show you how to do a wee alteration on the world's most adorable blazer. Look at the size of this blazer, it's so tiny. Oh my god. So this wee blazer, the sleeves need taken up by about 4.5 centimetres, but they will probably need let down again, so we're not going to be cutting any fabric off. It's going to be a wee alteration that allows us to take it down again at a later date, because these are very expensive. So first thing you want to do, obviously figure out how much the sleeve needs taken up by. This one's 4.5. And I'm going to turn the wee sleeve inside out. And then we need to get into the lining because here's the wee sleeve here. It's been stitched. So this bit has been stitched to the outside, so actually you can't get these apart at this point. Can totally pull them apart, but here we need to get in, unpick that wee stitch, and there's also one at the other side. Unpick that wee stitch. So find a seam on the inside, get your unpicker. I'm a couple, maybe 10 centimetres from where the lining meets the wee cuff. Got the hole in the lining. Now you have to go inside the lining and just where this seam is, when you pull it out, it's really hard to see, but there's a wee couple of stitches here that are basically attaching the cuff to the outside of the blazer to stop the cuff coming down and it all being messy. So just find it. So now what you have is a sleeve that you can do this with. This wee blazer has quite an obvious, it's hard to see because it's navy, it's got quite an obvious wee bump where the previous bottom of the cuff was. If yours doesn't have that, you're going to have to mark it probably with pins or with a wee tack and stitch. I won't use chalk on this just in case it doesn't come out. But this is quite an obvious one, and you need to know where that is so that you can measure your 4.5 centimetres or whatever you have to take your sleeve up by. These sewing gauges are so good. So it's got a little plastic bit on it that you can move to wherever you want, and then you don't have to keep looking, oh where's the 4.5? Very good. To meet, so that we're going to recreate this bit here. So we're going to make a new one of them without altering this at all, so that it can be taken back out again. So I'm going to pull this down. You don't want to pull it down too much because it'll look a bit weird on the outside. So 3 is where I'm going to sew the lining to. And again, I'm going to make sure that the seams on the lining are going to match the seams on the actual wee wool bit of the cuff. Because the sleeve is naturally narrower at the bottom of the cuff, lower down the cuff than it is higher up, you might find that we've got a little bit of excess here. Don't worry about that because we're going to be hand stitching that and you can actually fix it and you'll never notice it, so that's fine, don't worry if that happens. What I did with the other sleeve is I actually put some safety pins in it instead of the normal pins, and I pulled it out to the right side to make sure that it was sitting okay, to make sure that my 3 centimetre, where I was pulling my lining down to, the 3 centimetre distance was fine. And I know that it is because I've done the other sleeve, but I would probably do that, just make sure that where your pins are, it's still sitting fine, it's not kind of looking a bit weird on the outside. Come out, pull your thread, and then what you want to do is with your needle go right across to the other side, go in along the line. If you can imagine there's a wee ironing, if we'd iron, you don't iron this lining by the way, it might melt, but where the original stitching was, that's the line that we're going to try and follow here. So you're going in and along, and then wherever your stitching comes out, you're going across the other, directly across the other side, and you're going to go in and along again. You also use this stitch to like close up soft toys or anything that you don't want to see. It's kind of like lacing up a corset, a wee imaginary corset. You're going across, through, out, across, through, out, and you just keep going all the way. To finish, all I would do is go in, tiny bit, make a wee loop, go through the loop, making a wee tiny knot basically. Okay, then that's all closed up. So I'm going to come from the inside so that my wee knot is hidden away. In there, and then right next to where we want it to go, we're going to come along a couple of millimeters. And then right across from where it's coming out of the wool, we're going straight across the way into the lining. And then you just keep going with that and make sure all the way around I measure every so often to make sure I'm still in the right place. When you get to the end, I'm going to do the same again, where I just go in, make a wee loop through it, it's like a wee double knot. Almost done, just got one more thing to do. So those wee stitches that we unpicked, we opened the lining and unpicked, we're going to try and put them back in without going into the lining again. So get yourself some more thread. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the lining again so that my wee knotty bit ends up in the inside. Cut that extra wee tail off. That seam on the outside is matching up with this seam, which is on the inside. And I'm going to do a wee stitch through the wool, and I'm going to catch the seam allowance of the outer bit here. It's a bit tricky, but you'll know if you've got the seam allowance because you can feel it. I can feel it pulling on this side, so I'm going to go through. Then I'm going to do it again. And then we can turn it out to the right side. Perfect length. These sleeves, ready for a little man on his first day at school. Any questions about that, give us a shout. Otherwise, I will see you next time.